Right, this is an interview with Lembit Opik, Director of Public Affairs for the Motorcycle Action Group, and we're here to discuss the benefits and disbenefits of training for volunteers within the Motorcycle Action Group. Thank you, Lembit.
My pleasure.
So, I know you've got a background in training. Can you give me some details about that?
I first trained a course as a student working for the National Union of Students, and actually a step before that, I first trained a course as president of Bristol University Students' Union in 1985. So that was 31 years ago. And I took a liking to training straight away. I did a lot of training in the student movement in the late 80s, early 90s. And I transferred from the advertising department in Procter & Gamble into human resources to pursue a career in training. I ended up as the global human resources training and development manager for the organisation. It had 120,000 staff, roughly. And then I went into politics, but I carried on doing freelance training. And now in my my communications and public affairs role in the Motorcycle Action Group, I'm doing training again. Very much the same principles as I did in marketing, but now we're selling ideology instead of soap powder.
Thank you. So can you tell us now about when you joined the Motorcycle Action Group and what your role within the Motorcycle Action Group would be?
I joined the Motorcycle Action Group in 2013 as Director of Communications and Public Affairs. My role is to help to professionalise the interface between riders and politicians and other decision makers. And there are three elements to how I do that. Number one, to create a narrative, a story for the organisation. It's not so much to create it, but to distill it into phrases which make real sense and sell a real benefit to biking. Number two, to build direct relationships with politicians. And number three, to train the organisation to be able to do that independently of my direct input. Because quite simply, with tens of thousands of politicians in the United Kingdom, there's only so much I can do. But the organisation, if trained and capable and confident of doing it, can move mountains when it comes to riders' rights. And part of my role is to empower the organisation to do that.
Do you feel that training of volunteers will have a good impact on the professionalising the organisation?
Yes, there's absolutely no doubt that training the volunteer base is the only way that MAG can achieve its ambitious riders' rights agenda. When you're talking about protecting freedoms, you're speaking in an unfashionable language. A lot of the public vaguely accept the idea they have to compromise their civil liberties for their safety, whether it's against terrorism or whether it's against their own stupidity. A libertarian understands that we have the right to make bad decisions as long as they don't harm anyone else. And furthermore, that sometimes the worst decisions of all are made by the government, who misinterpret what's safe and what isn't. There are two ways to combat that. One is financial, by throwing money at having an army of professionals to lobby the decision makers. The second, and ultimately more enduring option, is to train the organisation to its core to sell its message. Then the volunteers become the best voice you can have because they're far more authentic than hired guns. I think training means making the organisation capable of speaking very strong words softly but clearly to the people across the country, and I could never do that on my own, and no organisation like MAG could afford to do that on a purely financial basis.
I do remember having a conversation with Susan Kramer very, very many years ago where she actually said that the Motorcycle Action Group were, as political lobbyists within their volunteer base, second only to the British nuclear fuel industry in terms of their lobbying ability, which I took as a great compliment. Do you think they're at that level now, or do you think the training for volunteers needs to be improved to bring them back to that level?
Every organisation, like the Motorcycle Action Group, has a cyclical relationship with itself and thus internally with itself and externally with the people and the groups it has to interface with. And MAG went through a period of renewal over the last 5 years, maybe 8 years even, In that process, it became very introspective. Across the last 3 years, it's become much more extrovert, and transiting back to talking out rather than talking in requires training. Although there is a core of people who have seen the organisation go through many iterations, there's a huge swathe of potential activists who've never done this before. Training is the vital component which converts enthusiasm into focus and which converts anger into resolve. Without training, it's potluck what you get. With training, people are able to self-select themselves into roles that make a difference. And whether you're riding a Hells Angel on a Harley in Manchester, or a marketing executive on a scooter in London, if you've got the right training, you'll be a voice for power two-wheelers.
When I was doing my quantitative research and I did my survey of members of MAG, those members who said that they had received training said that the training was very good, but the majority of those who answered said that they had been promised training or no training had been forthcoming, it had never happened, and they felt it would be a benefit but it hadn't happened. Are there any plans to sort of to broaden the training regime for the volunteers within the Motorcycle Action Group?
First, I agree that demand exceeds supply. The attraction of training to eager volunteers is immense. The desire to deliver it equals that attraction. The resources to do so never will. One of my roles is to find creative solutions to increasing the training resources within the organisation. That's work in progress. I think that'll take me 3 more years. In 2015, I feel the organisation showed greater professionalism across the country in engaging with politicians during the general election than it had ever done before. In 2020, I'd like this organisation to be such a powerful voice that politicians aren't reacting to MAG, they're being proactive and reaching out to MAG. So that's my personal measure of success for 2020. What does it take? It does require an uplift in training resource, but that too can be voluntary. We can train trainers. You have to handpick those people because they are, if you like, the generals of training in the organisation. But if we can find 10 people capable of training others, we can deliver the promise that we've made.
Do you think there is a place for training via electronic means, such as webinars, via DVDs, for instance? I used to have a DVD that I issued out to people to reps, which had lots of templates on it for them to use, but also had links to where I would put training videos and that kind of thing if we couldn't actually get together. Do you think that has a place? Or do you think bikers are too stubborn to actually do that?
Despite appearances and claims, most bikers understand the internet, and most activists who really care will take the training through whatever medium is most feasible. It's always better to be in a room with the group, but if the alternatives are distance training or no training, the dedicated people will take the distance training, and that's coming forward in leaps and bounds. In terms of video, in terms of other methodologies, other media, I think videos can be very effective, and we're working up some videos as well, which will be going out quite soon. And then there's a third thing as well. I've discovered that bikers are very good at following handbooks, probably because they've all rebuilt the bike. Yeah. I was going to say, and perhaps if there's a Haynes manual for training activists, they'd all read it.
Or Magreps for Dummies.
Yeah, Magreps for Dummies, or a Haynes manual in lobbying MPs. A Haynes manual for bikers who want to lobby their MPs. Everybody would understand it. Though, what would happen is, in the middle of the interview, they go down to the pub and read it for half an hour.
Um, there are as many different types of bikers within MAG as there are bikes, and there are as many different volunteering opportunities almost as there are bikers. Anything from doing first aid at a rally to running the gate at a rally to obviously being the person who goes in and out of local council, Westminster or Brussels. Obviously, training needs to be dependent on what those volunteers want to do and are capable of doing. Are there plans to actually to implement that?
Yes, is the simple answer. I see. I see three key categories of training in the organisation. First one is ensuring the effective operation of the social side, social economic side, which is the rallies and so forth. That's the social fabric of the movement. The second element I see as the interface with the public, which can mean events such as rallies in a public environment. Salisbury is a good example. And actually, I'll start that again to make it really simple. My answer is simple. I see three elements to the training. The first element to the training is to run a rally effectively. In other words, to make the social fabric of the organisation work, and this has economic benefits to MAG. The second element I see is the public interface of MAG and the training that goes with that. So, for example, in Salisbury, they've just trained 30 marshals to ensure that when they close the whole centre of the city of Salisbury in April, the organisation will run effortlessly when the predicted 7,000 riders come through. And the third element is the political side, the lobbying of politicians in a coherent, a time efficient and intellectually consistent way. There's an overlap, particularly in 1 and 2 there, but all three of them are a distinct skill set. On the first side, if you want to run a rally, you have to know how to run the gate. You have to know how to sort out trouble. You have to know how to make sure that the security, so that if bad sorts turn up, they're dealt with in a way which isn't too extreme.
Confrontational.
Too extreme. With the second group, it's understanding how, as a marshal, you are part of the ambassador group between the town where the event's taking place and the bikers. How you can actually transform motorcyclist image by inviting the public in to the organisation and also settling any nerves, which generally don't come from the bikers but come from other groups who may not like bikers. And the third group, it's the game politics, the language of politics, where you have to understand what the politicians need rather than just simply tell them what you want. And those three are distinct, but there's one absolutely uniting condition in this, and that's to understand the human condition. It's what draws people into biking to an extent in the first place, certainly collective biking. And I would say that is a core strand in all of that training, as it is in any marketing operation, in any major corporation, anywhere in the world.
Do you think that there is a benefit to accrediting those who do the training by means of some kind of certificate or something of that ilk to sort of encourage them to do it? Obviously, there are people at a more educated level that won't really feel the need of that, but there are people at a less educated level who might actually be very grateful to have a certificate saying that they have achieved a certain amount of training in a certain area. Do you think that is something that is worthwhile, and do you think it's something MAG would look at?
The two benefits, yes, it's something. Yes, it's worthwhile. Yes, something that MAG would look like. There are two benefits and the two dangers. The two benefits are: number one, it can be very empowering to an individual to get that certificate because they feel that they have genuinely achieved something. Secondly, it can give a gravitas to the training because it forces you to set standards. That's what CIPD and others have achieved in the things that they've done, investors and people. All of that gave a standard to achieve, even if it was ropey to begin with, it gave a standard. The second, so basically, if it empowers the individual to create a standard, and secondly, it can give the organisation credibility. That's what I mean. The two drawbacks are it can put people off because they're frightened of being tested. And the second problem is sometimes the accreditation becomes so obsessively worshipped that the actual purpose of the training is forgotten. I've seen that happen in the human resources sector, There are jobs that I've done that I couldn't actually even apply for because I'm not qualified for now because of the increase in accreditation. That's a really serious danger. You can you can actually uh, accreditate should be a word, but it's not. Accreditation can actually drive out training because people say I can't be bothered with all this bureaucracy. That's a big problem.
Whereas there's a lot to be said for being qualified by experience.
Yeah, and also my judgment, and this isn't just for MAG. My judgment for training as a whole is we need to reintroduce a qualitative element to this because great empaths can identify other great empaths and empower them in the way that a great teacher can teach according to the learning strengths of the pupil without being told how to do it from a book. My role, I think, in MAG is to ensure that we get accreditable outcomes without sinking into the mire of paperwork.
And do you? I saw a great quote today from Richard Branson. I'm not going to be able to quote it exactly right, but it was something to do with you train your employees so that they want to stay, and you treat them well enough that they don't want to go. Sorry, you train them well enough that they can go, and you treat them well enough that they want to stay.
Yeah.
Do you feel that by providing the benefits of training to volunteers, you're likely to lose them? Or do you think it's worth doing anyway?
Yes, in the private sector, no in MAG. In the private sector, I trained a course called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The late Stephen R. Covey wrote that. Created that course, and if I had 24 people on the course, I knew that 1 or 2 of them would leave as a direct result of the course, normally because they had an epiphany and realised they didn't want to sell the soap powder for the rest of their lives, but the other 2 would become more loyal to the company. I designed a course called General Application Training, and I was probably the best course I've ever designed, and I knew that I was giving people skills that meant they could go and do my job in other companies, and that's a risk you take, but that small level of attrition is worth it for the massive uplift and empowerment within the organisation. That's in the private sector. It's different in something like MAG. In MAG, the dynamic is not financial reward. In MAG, the dynamic is philosophy, is that narrative I was talking about. And I think that training can do only good there. I don't feel that if we train our activists to be brilliant spokespeople for biking, they're going to say, I'm good enough to leave MAG now. So they're going to say, MAG did this for me and I'm going to give something back. Because there's no profit motive in working for MAG, not even for the staff. We could all go and earn much more money somewhere else. Because you're united in that story, in that philosophy, in the libertarian agenda. So that concern does not concern me in MAG. I'll give you a classic example though. In Procter & Gamble, I was offered a job by another company at triple my salary, and that was because of what P&G had taught me. And I said, I'd love to do that job, but only in P&G. And they said, why would you not accept the extra money? I said, because I'd only be buying the lifestyle that P&G gives me. You can use exactly those words in MAG. Why would you leave an organisation that gives you the lifestyle that you aspire to create in a community when we create that for most weekends every summer in a rally somewhere in a field somewhere in Britain? And if you know you can be part of protecting that, that's more motivating than going and doing it for another organisation, unless you're an even greater egotist than the people who probably wouldn't have been welcome in MAG in the first place.
And I think my final question then would be 2-part. What do you think the benefits and disbenefits to MAG of providing training to volunteers are, and also the benefits and disbenefits to the volunteers of providing training?
The benefits to MAG are to turbocharge the voice of riding at a local level across the country. The training ensures that there is a consistent voice and message going across to decision makers who are often in the same parties. As long as they hear the same thing at their conferences, the Conservative Party conference, the Labour Party conference, the UKIP conference, then it sounds like a loud clarion call for certain action. And it massively supports the work that we do in Westminster and so forth. So the first big benefit. Second big benefit is when the going gets tough, the tough get consistent, because we don't fight individual battles. training creates a mental discipline to understand that a collective is exactly that. Individualists have to work collectively to protect their individuality. And that's intuitively obvious because people feel it. But when you make it clear, people understand why I wear a suit with Leon Manning's got leader management when I go into Westminster, and they don't have to wear a suit, they go into their local authorities. So we share best practice in a way which increases the effectiveness of the voice. There's one disbenefit, and it's resources. Training to be done properly takes an enormous amount of personal and time and as well. It's really personal, emotional and time investment, and that means we're not doing something else when we're doing training, but it's a force multiplier.
And what about the benefits and disbenefits to the members of MAG?
The benefits to MAG members are they can get personal fulfillment by further assisting the organisation in a way that they intuitively feel is worthwhile, but maybe hadn't codified into specific actions like going to see a local counsellor. The second benefit is the skill set that they can then apply in other aspects of their lives. The only potential disbenefit, I think, is if they feel that as a result of having taken the training, they are made to feel obligated to do things they don't really want to do. In other words, they might be put off from taking the training because they think it's the king's shilling. But in a way, I think that's not really a problem, because you wouldn't go to the training in the first place if you didn't want to work for MAG. If they were paying for the training, it would be different, but directly. But they're paying for the training through their memberships and everything else. So on that one, there's no disbenefit for the individual. There's only a disbenefit for the organisation because of the opportunity cost. When I'm training, I'm not doing something else.
Thank you very much, Lembit. Thank you for your time today.
My pleasure, and hope that's useful.